All right. I'm gonna wait for some people to get in. Welcome to Dancing with Duncan in the dining room, I guess. Good boy. All right, so we're going to be going over some things that you can do for kind of more advanced dancing. I guess we'll call it advanced dancing. It's just technique that you can do in your home. So, yeah, and then my dog's here, so don't mind him. We're still working on training and things, so that's fun. Anyway, a couple of things that we can go over is kind of some basic actions that you can do in your dancing. I remember a story from Gabriella where when she was learning to dance and she was doing things, she was practicing in her kitchen while she was washing dishes. And so this is a time that we can all go through some basics and some basic actions, and I'll try to read as I can. Hi, Vicky. I can't really see it because it's on my teeny tiny phone, so we'll do what we can, all right? So, one of the things that, I like to talk about, one of the things that I really want to make sure that people understand is kind of a couple of things that I consider as active dancing, okay? So active dancing are things that we need to do with our body while we're dancing, and whether you're doing dishes or you're folding laundry or anything that you're really doing, you can use this in everyday life, which is just really good for you anyway. So one thing that I think is really important for everybody, whether you're dancing or not, is the idea of posture, right? So when we think about posture, a lot of people just think about standing up and they're split weight and they're going to pull up, but stretching, right? We want to actively be doing something. So if we're dancing or we're just going around, we want to have good posture. We want to make sure that we're pulling our spine. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull from the head and we're going to pull our shoulders down so that creates a very tall line and aligns the spine. So even if you're just walking around or you're doing anything, even if you're sitting, right, you can sit and still have good posture as you move around. So what that does, sometimes people, we lean forward and we don't really want to do that. So one of the first things that we do, because we need to make sure that our body is in line, okay, is that we want to make sure that we're stretching through the back of the head, okay? So we stretch and we create this pull. We pull from the top of the head through the shoulders, and that creates a really good position so that anything that we do outside of that is going to be in line with the body. So many things happening. I can't really see it all. Hi, everyone. And yes, Mickey says hi, Melissa. Thank you. Okay, so with that, so we have stretching, right? So if you're washing your dishes, even if it's going to be awkward, stretch. It's good for you, okay? The second thing that's really important, especially when we're doing things that's more advanced, is work through the core, okay? The best way that I can explain this is kind of like you feel like you're crunching, you're engaging your core, so that again, we want to create the fluid action throughout the body. So when we're dancing, we need to activate the core so that when we're doing something with the lower part of the body, engages with the upper part of the body. So we need to make sure, first of all, that we have the good posture, right? And we have a stretch throughout there, and then we engage the core so that our body is in line, but that it works together, okay? So sometimes people, they're like, okay, well, I'm moving my hips, and I'm like, yeah, that's great, but it's not really what we want, right? We need to engage the core, right, and stretch so that when something happens, you're going to get a result through the rest of the body, right? So that's active dancing, right? And so we're going to go through, you can go through frame as well, but if you don't have a partner, because we're all social distancing, which is good, then just engaging your arms, even if you're practicing, just think about using the arms and having tone or flex in the arms. That's good, because when we're dancing, whether we're leading or following, you have to have connection. And what we mean by that is that you tone your arms so that your arms connect to your back, right? So we tone the arms so that if I'm leading, as my body moves, that moves my partner. And then if I'm following, then I'm going to feel it through the arms first, right? And that engages my body so that I don't just release or don't move when my partner tells me to do something, right? So arms, again, we can be active when we dance, right? So we have stretching that can be active. We have the core, which can be active, and then we have our frame, which can be active, right? So that's going to take a lot of work, right? Some of us who need to work out a little bit, myself included, these are really good things to do, which will create some sweating, which is nice, so we can get that body work happening, okay? So, with that, the other active thing that I talk about is with music. I'm not worried about music right now. You all just practice timing by yourself. But I want to go through a couple different things. Advanced technique, I guess is what we're going to call it. On some like smooth dances and some rhythm dances, things that you can really work on at home. Okay, so one of the biggest ones I'm going to start with is just going to be our Cuban motion. We talk about Cuban motion a lot. We use it in a lot of different dances, and it's a really good way to figure out what's going on through the body, right? So we're going to start with the box step. Now I know it says advanced, but some of us may not be that advanced right now, and that's fine. Tune in because there's not much else going on that I'm aware of. Okay, so we'll start with a simple box. Okay, I guess we probably have more ladies coming in than leaders, right? So we're going to start with the right foot going back. Got you covered, right? So when we're doing our box, right, we have back with the right foot, side, then together with the right foot, and then we switch weight. So we go forward with the left foot, forward, side, together. Now, for you all, carpet, I'm just wearing socks. You don't have to wear dance shoes to do this. Mickey, stop it. He'll calm down, I promise. All right, so what we're going to do is maybe, you don't know, it's a dog, all right? So we're going to start with the right foot going back, okay? Yes, okay, he's fine. Here's another dog, okay? So what we're going to do, right, for Cuban motion is we want to understand the concept of switching through the hips, right, rotating the hip around the spine. Okay, sometimes when we see people dancing, they're doing their Cuban motion, we kind of get this idea of like a swing, and we really don't want swing to happen in our Cuban motion. We just want rotation happening around the spine. Now, as we rotate, we're also going to allow the knees to bend, right? So we have this bending action that's happening, okay? Now, because I have everyone, we're going to talk also about practicing and practicing slowly. Mickey, sit. So, when we dance, right, the first thing that we want to do, right, because we're being a lady right now, now it doesn't matter because this is just the back half of the box for the leaders, right, we're going to take the left hip, right, and we're going to rotate the left hip back, okay, so as we rotate the hip back, that's going to bend this knee, okay. Now, backward steps, I think, are probably the hardest steps that we have in anything in ballroom dancing, so sorry ladies, because that's what you always start with. Right? Now, one of the problems that I see when people are doing their backward steps in Cuban motion is that they instantly let everything go. Okay, so what we have to do, we take the left hip back and we keep the right knee bent. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave our body in this position. And as we move our foot back, we want to leave everything that's happened so far. Right? So my left hip is still back, my right leg is still bent. Okay, now what I have to do is I have to make sure I get my body centered over the right foot. Then I can stand up so that I have two straight legs, right? I'm going to let my hips come forward because they were pulled back a little bit. They're going to come forward, and then it's going to rotate around. Again, we want to rotate, don't swing to the side. So it rotates around, and then I get to the left leg. Okay, so now my left knee is bent. This is what position we want to be in. Right hip is back. So as we go to the side, same thing. I'm going to leave my right hip back or even pull it back more to create more action. I pull the right hip back more and I get over my left foot. That's important. I'm going to leave everything where it was, right? So the left leg is still bent over the foot. Then I stand up over the foot. I have two straight legs. I'm going to let my hips come back to a neutral position because, again, they're pulled back. And then I'm going to rotate my hip, right? Again, so the right leg is bent. Now, together, I place the foot. I stand up over the right leg, I let my hips come forward, and then I rotate, right? So, again, left knee's bent, right hip's back, okay? Get over the left leg, stand up over the left leg. Again, hips are pulled back. I let my hips come forward, then I rotate, freeing the right knee, okay? So, we get this action of switching the hip, and then we can go bend, straight, release, rotate the hip, right? So when we're practicing anything that we're doing in Cuban motion, we want to make sure that we hit each of those points. Sometimes when we start dancing, we get a little overzealous, and we're like, okay, we're doing it, and then there's a lot of things happening with the body. We don't really want that to happen, right? So we want to go, okay, I rotate, right? I take that step. I stand up. I relax the hip so that it comes underneath of me. So again, I'm centered. And then I rotate, right? So it's bend, stand, release, rotate. Now I keep saying the release. If your hip pulls back, then this is really important. Sometimes when we're dancing, if I'm here, if I'm in this position where my hip is pulled back, especially on forward walks, but I try to rotate from this position, then my body's going to come forward. This is why I keep talking about releasing of the hips to get into a neutral position. Okay? When we're dancing, sometimes we're doing our Cuban motion or Latin motion, right, which is different, right? As we stand up, the hip is behind us, right? And so that's where we really want to make sure that we're not just releasing, but that we're letting our hip come underneath so we get into that nice neutral position. So here we have a very vertical, right, position over the left leg, but then I have to get my body into a neutral position, then I can rotate my hip, right? That's why I'm talking about the release of the hip. That's why that's important, right? So then we have that bend, stand, release, switch the hip. 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 Bend, stand, forward, relatively here, switch the hip. Bend, stand, forward, switch. Bend, stand, forward, switch, and then together, and neutral, switch. So if you're someone that wants to dance to music, right, and you're like, okay, I want to practice the music, and you're actually going to use the timing for the music. When you're doing rumba, right, you have that slow, quick, right, and you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, and you go through all that, right? So what I would recommend is doing everything in half time, okay? So that half of a basic takes 8 counts of music, okay? So if you're dancing this, then I would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So that we really slow it down, okay? Again, the purpose of this is that I want to make sure that as you're practicing, as you're dancing, don't rush through it. The slower that you practice, the more that your body is going to understand what is happening. It's harder, right? And it doesn't feel as good most of the time, but that makes sure that you can really maximize the positions of what you're doing so that when you're dancing it to speed, odds are you're not going to get as much of that when you're dancing. So you need to make sure that you're dancing it slow and as much as you can so that you get, 70% of it as you dance, okay? I'm just going to check in on the comments again. Here for the dog. Thanks, Shasta. I appreciate that. Yeah. He's over to the side. He's right here. He's behaving, so that's nice, right? Now, Cuban motion, right, since we're on the topic, and I have you all for a little while, Cuban motion is not just used in rumba, right? So we're going to use this in cha-cha, in mambo, not really in swing. Some people will do it in swing. Okay. So we use it through a couple of different dances, and then Latin motion really isn't that far off from it, but for most of us at home, we're doing rhythm, American style rhythm. So I do want to talk about how we use this in cha-cha and in mambo. And I'll go through a couple of different advanced techniques because maybe you're not here for rumba. That's fine. I'm going to go through a couple of different things, and then next week when I do the class again, I'll try to make sure I'm hitting different points, right? So far, just as a recap, we talked about our posture, right? Active dancing, engaging, right? Stretching through the head and through the shoulders so that we're tall no matter what we're doing, right? For those of us with back problems, do this, right? Focus on that, right? And then we talk about working through the core. That way, whatever's happening with the upper body is going to work through the lower body, vice versa, right? And then we talked a little bit about frame. Again, I'm not too worried about it. I'm more worried about the chandelier. I don't want to hit. I put it up, which is nice. So we talked about that, and then engaging so that whatever you're doing, right, works through you, works through your partner, okay? But 6 feet away, preferably. Dance with some brooms. It's up to you. Okay. So cha-cha. right? Cha-cha is going to be the same thing, except for when we get to the cha-cha action, right? So we go through our timing for cha-cha, right? We have our 1, 2, 3, cha-cha, 1, 2, 3, cha-cha, 1, right? So the cha-cha action is actually where we don't do a full Cuban motion action, okay? So when we're dancing cha-cha, right, we still have the hip back, and we have a full action here. So we have 1, we have a full action 2, and then a full action on 3. But when we get to the cha-cha part, right, we're only going to do what we call a merengue action. So I'm going to get over the foot, I'm going to go to a neutral, right? I'm not going to switch the hip all the way back. I'm going to go to a neutral, and then I'm going to switch the hip back to where it was. So it's just a half action, and so that's the cha-cha, and then I have 1, right? So then I have a full action again. So then as I continue my basic, 2, 3, right, full action, I go half, so I stop in the middle, half, I bring it back, and then a full action, right? So that's 1. So we have 2, full action, 3, full action, then I go half, half, full action, right? Or as Pat Tremore would say, rumba actions versus merengue actions, right? So you have your rumba action, rumba action, rumba action, and then a merengue, merengue, rumba action, right? Because, and I've seen people do this, I did this once upon a time, if you're doing a full action, the cha-cha really fast, you have your 1, 2, 3, and then you get really fast through the cha-cha, and it just looks a little spastic, and we don't want to look spastic, right? So that's really the difference that you have there in your cha-cha versus your rumba. We want to make sure that we're not doing a full action during the cha-cha because it is much faster and you don't have the time really to get through that entire action. Okay, and then we have mambo, right? Mambo is a staccato dance, right? And so when we're doing mambo, we don't have the fluidity that we really have in our rumba or even in our cha-cha, right? Even though they're both fast, right? Cha-cha and mambo, you're not going to keep it very fluid because it's not this characteristic of the dance. So when we're dancing mambo, right, it's the same actions throughout the hip, but what happens if we go to the, if we do start with our back rock, right, and we have 2, 3, we go 4, and we stop. And then we have 1, and we kind of just switch that hip, and it still has to go forward and around. You're still going to get to that straight, but it's as fast as you can, switching your hip from one side to the other, right? And so then you have this like 2, and 3, and 4, we hold 1. You kind of get a switch as fast as you can, right? So then again, we have 2, and 3, and 4, 1, right? So different, very different than salsa, right? A lot of people dancing your salsa, that's very fluid, right? So everything moves in between in salsa. Mickey, leave, yeah, okay. He's chasing the cat, it's not good, right? So salsa, very fluid, right? So we have that quick, quick, slow, and it never really stops. Puppy, go. Here. Go. Go away. All right? So, he's cute, right? Salsa, we have that fluid action, slow and quick, quick, slow and quick, quick, slow. But in mambo, we don't have that because mambo is very staccato, right? That means very sharp, okay? So when we're dancing, yeah, it's okay, puppy. Anyway, so in mambo, we have that 2, and 3, and 4. Nope. I got distracted by the dog. Right, so we have that back step 2. Okay, come on. Come on. Here, lay down. He's excited. He doesn't get to see me dance, all right? So, mambo, right? 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, right? So very staccato actions, okay? And again, I'm trying to go through because we all need to practice different things. So I'm going to make sure I'm giving everyone just something that you can work on, something that you can practice. Now, I already gave you treats, puppy. Okay. So one of the things that I have that people ask questions on a lot are footwork, right? And I hope, yeah, okay, you can see my feet. There are comments scrolling through, so I can't really see my feet. So when we do rhythm dancing, right, we talk about leaving the balls of the feet on the floor, right? Leaving the balls of the feet on the floor at all times, or even some people think about the toes, too much, right? But balls of the feet on the floor. Thank you, Bubby. Yes, I need you to come this way. Go. I came prepared with treats though. So, ball of the foot on the floor. Now, some of us sit. Good boy. Man, lay down. Yeah, we're working on it. He's being trained. He's a good boy. Okay, so when we're talking about the ball of the foot, right, when we're getting started, okay, the most important thing, I think, is to make sure that you can start with the ball of the foot. All right, I'm going to do this sideways so that we can start with the ball of the foot, but then as you're getting over the foot, I think it's really important when you're getting started to get your foot flat, okay? Some people are trying to do so much happening and it's causing like bounce, right? You can see this here, this bounce that happens through the cube motion, and we don't want that in the beginning, right? The most important thing is to make sure that even if you start with the ball of the foot, that's great, right? But that you really get that heel down, and then you get up over the foot, right? And then you can rotate. Now, as we get more advanced, puppy, go. As we get more advanced, there are some people, if you're capable of this, that's great, right? But we don't want to be unstable, and we don't want to rise and fall, right? So what we have is ball of the foot, but as I get over the foot, as I move forward, you're blocking the people from seeing what's happening. Okay, hold on. Kennel, go. Go. Okay, we tried. We tried, it didn't work. He's a good boy, but you need to see what I'm teaching, okay? So, when we're dancing, we're going forward. Sometimes, if you can, as you're putting the heel down, the hip can come forward. That way you're not changing the height, right? So then you get over the foot, and then you have a little extra foot action, which looks really nice, right? But it's very tricky when you're dancing to be able to put the foot there, heel the foot, and then on the ball of the foot, and then work through the switch as we're dancing, right? So as the heel's going down, the leg's coming up, and we're working the hip forward, and that's a really tricky action to try to get. And that's going to take a lot of time, which is why I say in the beginning it's a lot better, right, to plant that heel down so that you understand what's happening through the body, okay? So that's footwork. You can talk about footwork with your instructor, or you can try to practice that. And it looks great, all right? I promise it does. It looks really nice when you see people and they have those nice foot articulations, they're working from the inside edge of the foot, right? Some of us have ankle problems, some of us can't do that. And that is a very advanced technique, all right? So that's something just to be thinking about, all right? He's so sad that he can't be with us right now, but he was blocking our feet, all right? So, we've done a little bit of cha-cha, rumba, and mambo. What I want to go through is I want to finish the 5 rhythm dances. Oh, he's so sad. We may have to bring him out in a minute. But we have bolero and swing. Okay? So, I'm going to start with swing just because it is a bit more socially used, right? So, when we dance swing, right, unfortunately we've talked a bit about the ball of the foot and the actions, and we're going to talk about some smooth dances as well. He is sad. He'll calm down. So, when we dance swing, we're going to use hip swing, right? Hip swing is going to come back in some of the smooth dances that we use. It doesn't quite use Cuban motion, but we can talk about that for the rock step, okay? So, when we dance our swing, again, I'm going to be doing the followers part because there are more ladies watching than there are men. If we switch that dynamic, then maybe I'll do it the other way around, right? But when we dance swing, right, we have our triple step action. We have that triple step, and then we have our rock step. The rock step, I think, is where we really kind of get that action of Cuban motion. But I want to introduce more of hip swing as we're going through our swing rather than Cuban motion because it really doesn't use Cuban motion as much. So when we're dancing our swing, right, we get this hip swing action. It gets our body into a really different position than we ask for in some of the other dances. In the other dances, we want to be forward. But in swing, we want to be here. We want to be in this kind of tilted position because that's going to be where our body is going. And then we actually use the hip swing to change direction. It's really helpful. Okay? And so in silver, we start calling this drop swing. I'm going to talk about why and how there's a lowering action in swing. right? Because East Coast swing versus jive versus West Coast swing, yada, yada, yada. East Coast swing, for me, is down. Everything that we want to focus on in swing is a down action, right? Jive, everything is very pulled up and we're lifted. West Coast, flat. It's very cool, very just chill, right? We don't want it, okay? So, when we do our swing, yeah, I gotta go get him. Buddy, I'm doing a Facebook Live video. Okay, but you have to stay calm. Yeah, I know. He loves me. He does. Okay, go. Lay down. Lay down. Good boy. Okay, so back to swing. No jumping. Down. Anyway, if you came for the dog, this is Mickey. We rescued him in October. He is 1.5. He's a Beagle Bulldog mix, just so you know. We're working on his dancing too, so it's okay. Yeah? Go. Lay down. Kennel, go. No. Bobby. Okay. So, I have to keep the water bottle because he doesn't like it, and he knows not to jump on me when I have that. So, back to swing. Okay? When we dance swing, right, we want to make sure that we let our hips swing. Okay? So, as we do this, right, during our triple step action, what we're going to do in the first part of it is we're going to press into the ball of the foot, right? So we have a pressure step. So we have a press and then a compression, right? So that's where the bounce kind of happens. We press. Now notice I'm not going to go all the way up into the ball of the foot. I'm not going to push all the way up, right? I'm going to go pressure step, compress, and then as I step to the side, that's where we get our swinging action, okay? So we have our swing there. Right? So, for our triple step, we're going to go press, compress, and this is the part that I see the least when I see people dancing, because what happens is we go bump, bump, and it's locked out. It creates very harsh action and swing. So we have a pressure step, a compression step, we step to the side, and then swing the hip, right? So again, the other side, we have a pressure step, compression, side, swing the hip. I'm going to check in, I know. Yeah. Miss you guys. Yeah. Anyway, back to swing. Right? So, we have, I know you don't like this, do you? It's okay. So we have pressure step, compress, side, swing the hip. Press, compress, side, swing the hip. Now, when we do our rock step, again, I'm going back on the right foot. Yeah? I know, Bubby. We have back with the hip, right? So we actually swing that hip back and then forward. And I'm still doing it off of a bent leg. Okay? See, I know some of you are going through this at home too. I get it. You should see what's happening because I moved the table and the chairs. It's a mess. I had to lift this up so I didn't hit it. I was very concerned before I started. So, anyway, so when we do our rock step, rock, we swing the hip back, swing the hip forward, and then it's going to settle again to the side. So you can see as we swing, there's a lot of swing happening throughout the hips, right? So again, as we dance the swing basic, we have press, compress, swing the hip, right? Press, compress, swing the hip, and then we have our rock, step, and we're back to this side. Press, compress, swing the hip, press, compress, swing the hip, and rock, step. So in swing, even if you're doing turns or things, right, you're still going to do like your press, compress, and then as you do your turn, you're still going to get that swing that happens. And then press, compress, swing, right? So no matter what you're doing, the idea, except for the exceptions that we have through everything, because everything we say is a lie apparently at some point, you're going to use this through most of what you're doing when you're dancing, right? So these swing basics I'm going through, basics, it's silver basics, you're going to use them through all the steps. I'm going to grab a sip of my water, check in on the comments. Hey, oh. Miss you guys too. You all are awesome. Okay, so Bolero's the last dance that we have to go through for our rhythm dances for today. Yeah, someone liked it. So, when we do Bolero, still going to be the follower first, right? Not as good on carpet, but that's why I'm wearing socks and not shoes, right? Maybe I'll do it in my kitchen next time. I have tile. but maybe, you know, you have room in your living room, not in your kitchen. I don't know, it's up to you. I'm going to switch it up because I understand we're all going through different things at home. Yeah? Maybe we'll do a class where I'm washing dishes. I'm not going to do that. So, bolero, right? Bolero, we're going to introduce more of the rise and fall action, which we will use more in our smooth, right? So as we dance bolero, the first thing that we want to do, kind of point the foot, that's fine, but we have a lowering action. Okay, so we lower in bolero, and now as we lower, if you notice, that's going to move that foot a little bit further, right? So I'm going to transfer my weight in bolero, right? It's kind of like in your, if you're in a swim pool, you go under, you know, the rope that follows down, right? So in bolero, I point the foot, I transfer weight, right? So that's the beginning of the word slow. Right, so I have my slow, and then I rise, lead. And I'm going to come up through the leg first, and then through the ball of the foot. Okay? Now, I place my left foot in front, and I go quick, and then I lower on the word and. It's an imaginary word, it doesn't exist. This is the second half of the beat. Right? So that was the step lower, and then I step back, and I'm going to point the foot again. Quick and. Okay? So for my bolero basic, I have slow, Lee, all the way up, quick, and I lower, quick, and I point, right? And then I'm ready to go slow. So transfer of weight, rise through the leg, then the ball of the foot, teeny, teeny, tiny step, transfer weight, lower, medium-sized step back, transfer weight, and then point the foot staying down, right? So as we dance our bolero basic, right? We're going to do this. We're going to lower, and then we have step, rise, step, lower, step, point the foot, right? We have step, rise, step, lower, step, point the foot, right? Those are the actions that we want to do. Now, one of the things I haven't talked about yet, just in some of the basic actions that we're doing in our rhythm today. I guess I will do smooth next week. Sorry if you came here for smooth. We're going to do that next week. I am teaching the Wednesday class again. But what I want to talk about is the upper body in rhythm dancing, right? So we have a lot of what we call same side leading, okay? Now, for that, right, whatever foot I'm going to step on, right? We're going back to rumba and our rumba basic. That's the side of the body that is going to be forward. Right? That doesn't always mean that it's going forward. If I'm going backwards when I'm stepping my right foot, which is how the ladies start their basic, right side still forward, right? So we get that right side forward, right? Same side leading. And then I transfer away, I do everything else that I do, but as I switch the hip, then I get the other side leading, right? So now I'm going to step on my left foot, so my left side is leading, right? And then my right side's leading. And it really coincides with the hip. It's really, really useful. And again, if we have the tone, if we have the posture, if everything that we're doing kind of works together, then it shouldn't be something that you necessarily have to think about. But, right, bolero, this is where it gets a little bit different, okay? Because for the leaders, we're kind of doing same side leading. It doesn't really apply as much, right? But when we're dancing in bolero, right, as I step to the side, right, we have a smooth shape. Okay, and what I mean by this, in rhythm, everything that we're doing is mirroring each other. It's an opposition, right? So if my right side's coming forward, your left side's coming forward. That's just how it's going to work. So we're going to be like a V'd out, right? Bolero, we don't have that. Bolero, we have smooth shaping. We're matching what's happening through the upper body, okay? So when we're dancing, right, then as a follower, I have my left side forward. As a leader, I would actually have my left side forward as well, which again is different in the rest of the rhythm dances because you're always going to be in opposition when you're dancing. But because of smooth and how we're rotating around a fixed point, right, with our shaping, then whatever side's forward for one person is the same side that's going to be forward for the other person. It's magic. I don't understand it. That's just how it works, okay? So, right, when we do our bolero basic, we actually have this shape of the left side coming a little bit more forward. And then we do that, and then you can, for the ladies, you have nice head positions. But then it's going to still feel like the left side's kind of coming forward. But you get that nice shaping as you're doing bolero. Makes a lot more sense with a person, all right? Now, I'm just going to check in, make sure, yeah. Yes. Does anyone have any questions so far? No? I mean, I'll give you all a moment. But I do want to go over one more dance, which isn't really in the rhythm style dances, but it is something that we dance on Fridays, something that you dance socially. It's really fun, and that's hustle. Okay? Specifically, because this is more advanced, I want to talk about your syncopated hustle. Okay? Now, when we start teaching hustle, what we tend to give people is their rock, step, march, march. Right? And so as they're dancing, they go back, back with the right foot, back with whatever foot, but you get this rock, step, march, march, and it rotates, rock, step, march, march, rock, step, march, march. That's great, okay? And that's great for a single time hustle. It's what I like to dance, single time. But when we go to syncopated hustle, and this is where it gets faster, right? Because instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, it becomes and 1, 2, 3, and 1. Now, what happens is sometimes we tell people the timing changes and then we speed it up, but what we don't see is a footwork change, which is very important that we get that footwork change as well, okay? Because instead of going back, step, right, because it's faster, we don't have as much time. So when you're syncopating that, what happens is you kind of get this like whiplash effect, and it's like, and it's too fast, and then everything's fast, and it really doesn't feel as good. It's kind of fun because it's going fast, but that's really not what we want. So when we're dancing our syncopated hustle, what we really want is to do what people in West Coast would call a coaster step, right? So your coaster step, we're actually going to go together forward, and then you have your forward side, relatively forward side. And then again, it's together forward, and that's going to allow you to be a lot quicker. So even if you're doing regular time hustle, instead of rock step, right, change that to together forward, right? So as a follower, if my right foot were to be free first, I would have together forward, march, march, together forward, march, march, right? So right foot forward, march, march. Notice I'm always kind of back so that I can bring my feet together. So every time I finish a basic, I'm going to be there. So that allows me to be faster, right, and feel a lot less spastic. So for the leaders, same thing, right? We have together forward, and then our side back, right? Together forward, side back. So whether you're practicing your single time hustle or a syncopated hustle, I would really like to see together forward, march, march, together forward, march, march. Stay a little bit forward poised. That's going to be helpful because again, we don't want to take it back. That's not going to be good. Okay, so those are my advanced technique things for today. Thank you so much for joining in. I appreciate you. Tune in. There's a calendar on our Lexington Arthur Murray Facebook. Feel free to share the video. If you want to show us what you learned, that would be super cool. If you want to put your own twist on like the line dances that we're doing, we all need some fun in our lives right now. So feel free to take videos of yourself doing it. Practice the social distancing though. And let us know what you're doing. Use the hashtags, healthy at home, Together Kentucky. Andy Beshear has been doing great. Thank you all so much. I will be doing the Dancing Through the Decades on Friday. And then I have this class again on Wednesday. So love you guys. Take care. Be safe. And I will see you soon. All right. Bye.